Here we are, episode 6, In the Bushes. This time, your host, Chris Patton, celebrity guest, Grant Millay, and we got our guy, the ultimate taster here, Bobby Wahl.
Shout out to Carson Fulmer for that.
So
Thanks,
Bobby,
bud.
I think everybody kind of wants to know, what is a taster? Where did that come from? And is it good to be a taster or not?
Well, no, it's not good to be a taster. Again, shout out to Carson Fulmer for this word here. Basically, if you're a T, you're just a T. You know what I mean? And you kind of, you're all about yourself. You like yourself a lot. So that's kind of what we refer to as a taste. You like to taste yourself, you know? You go, hey, man, I had a really good outing. I punched out 8 and didn't walk any. You tasted yourself. Oh, I hit 98. I tasted myself. So that's where it kind of comes from. So glad we can get that out of the way. Cool. Go ahead.
Leading on taste.
We're not going to continue to call me taste all the time. That's not going to continue to work.
We do have some teas, but yeah, we'll say you're not a taster.
Thank you.
We're going to talk a little bit about your eating habits, though. Had some candy in here for Easter a couple weeks ago, and people saw you chew up some candy and then spit it right out. What's that all about? What's going on with that?
Oh, man. So basically, you know, if people do research, they can find that a lot of those food dyes that are in those candies and a lot of the sugars and stuff obviously aren't good for your health. And I would imagine if you're not digesting it, you're probably not putting as much of it into your body and your bloodstream, so just get a little taste.
Just getting a little taste.
Get a little tea, get a little taste of the candy and spit it right out. You know, for those of you that don't know, a lot of us in here take care of our health. We are constantly working out. We're sort of working on our diets here and there, minus Grant. We've been better.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, he's getting better. So yeah, just want to get a little taste of the candy and spit it right back out. What can I say?
As we all know, too, you were a former big leaguer, so obviously a high-level competitor. We see that all the time in our pig games.
Yeah.
Anything we do, blitz ball.
Mm-hmm.
Also eating as well. I think you put
Well, first off, I want to say, before we get to the eating thing, like, I am the best at mini hoops here, and stats will show.
Tallies show it.
Tallies and the three-point contest, I have the
Joey's
best
got
shot.
a little, we're going to have to check his. I think he's got a couple of dubs on there that shouldn't count.
That needs to be reviewed. We need to send it into the Senate or whoever's going to review, because there are some questionable wins up there for Joey. Sorry, Joey. But yeah, I am the best at pig, and I am probably the best at blitzball. I mean, definitely the best pitcher, and that might come across as me being a little T, but it's
cheating
true.
There as well. A little cheating there going
over
over
for those, listen to this, okay?
The velocity requirements.
It's absolute.
Grant
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
No. There are no rules in blitzball about velo. I mean, maybe there are, but from what I've seen, the rules that I've read, there's no actual velo limitations. So like those guys are ripping it, right? And like we came up with this rule where it can't be over 69, wasn't it, or 70?
70. Yeah, but then you made it 72, and.
But the
harder you threw, the more you
again, like
got
it shouldn't be that. It should be, hey, you're better than me, and that's that.
Well, this does kind of lead into what I was about to say. When you were a child, you said you wanted to be the fastest eater.
Uh-huh.
We saw that earlier. You put down a Jersey Mike sub in probably 0.3 seconds.
Two of them, actually.
Two a wrap and a sub. So when you were growing up, was that a thing? Like always, you try to beat your friends, you try to compete with your friends and everything you did, especially eating and baseball and not.
It's kind of a sick thing, I guess. Now that I think about it more, and you guys have pointed it out to me, like I wanted to finish my food first because I didn't like when somebody ate faster than me. So, yeah, it sounds terrible, but it is what it is, and I think it kind of makes me, and it makes me a competitor. So, like, I don't know. It's a blessing and a curse, I guess, boys.
For sure. Going back to your childhood, too, I remember you talked about your dad was a cop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you were coming up, really the only way you knew what your velocity was or how well you were progressing was he would take the radar gun. And
that was awesome. That's a great question by you guys. Thank you. And this is probably a story that not a lot of people know. So my dad was a police officer. He worked midnights. We're outside D.C. Didn't work with traffic or anything. He was kind of boots on the ground guy.
So he really just took it from he wasn't supposed to have it. Yeah.
Right. So what he did was, during the day before one of his shifts, he snuck into the traffic cops or police headquarters or whatever and stole a radar gun. And that's how I learned to throw hard. For me, growing up, there wasn't a lot of this, what we have now here, like the biomechanics stuff. It was more so hey, you want to throw hard? Throw hard.
And it was you competing against yourself.
Yeah, every single day. Yeah, every single day I was competing against that radar gun and trying to throw hard, and my dad would set it up in the driveway for me pretty much every day after school, I want to say. He would sit on the bucket. We lived on a cul-de-sac, too, so it was, like, kind of slanted. So it kind of worked as a mound. We didn't have a mound, but I would throw in the driveway. He'd set the radar gun up, and I was trying to light it up all day long.
You don't have to have all the tools, man. You just got to
Yeah.
figure out what works for you, and like I said, have that internal motivation and be able to compete against yourself. Like, did you have other friends that you would velo? Like, did you know where you stood against those guys, or?
Yeah, like my dad would bring it to practice sometimes, and we'd kind of mess around with it. And I don't want to say always threw the hardest, but I was always in that top % of guys throwing hard. But we'd always compete, and I just remember getting so pissed off if somebody was like even remotely near me. So like I think that's kind of goes back to the eating habits, I guess. But yeah, I would always compete with them. It was nonstop. I think from a young age, that kind of instilled some competitive drive in me, and that stayed with me and my friends for our whole lives, because a lot of those guys that I grew up with are still my best friends today. So that still kind of holds true, I guess, now.
I mean, you're probably 10 years younger than Bobby, right? So like, how was that different for you? When did you start?
Let's chill out.
When did you start figuring out?
7 years younger than me? 6 years? 8.
23.
So 8.
When did you figure out like you were kind of ahead of the pack, throwing harder than most guys? I mean,
I was always big as a kid, so probably like 14, 15, around there.
So not in Little League though?
No, I mean, like when I was 12, I was pretty big. So I would say the squash days.
Because there was always that kid that grew faster than everybody else. Were you that guy?
Yeah.
You were that guy?
Yeah.
I hated that guy because I was always smaller. Like in 6th grade, 5th grade, I was like the kind of the small kid, and I would throw hard, but some of those kids that developed a little bit faster always threw a little bit harder. So you were my enemy at 12 years old.
Building on that as well, like
5'9" at 12.
Yeah.
Jeez. Huge. That is crazy.
Yeah.
When did you know, like, all right, I've kind of got something going here. Baseball might be something that I could end up doing as a career. Like, when did that kind of come to fruition for you? When did that become a reality?
So I can remember going into my sophomore year of high school, because I played all 3 sports growing up, and I liked football more, to be honest with you. And I enjoyed basketball too, but
speak on that too. Like, what you always talk about how you love guys being athletes, right? How do you think that impacted you as a baseball player?
I just think you learn different motor control. Really, I think, so much of a pitching delivery has to do with syncing up the segments of your body, upper and lower half. And a lot of those movements can be learned and trained through playing defense on basketball or running a route or taking a 3-step drop as a quarterback. Like, there's so many different movements in different sports that you learn and pick up, and they make you better as an athlete, which will translate to the mound.
Well, I mean, we see it. We have guys try to do layups on the mini hoop.
Oh my gosh.
It's atrocious.
I don't want to name anybody, but like, there's some awful athletes in here, and we were talking about the other day, like, specialization in baseball now is like so ridiculous. There's 7th graders being POs now, and you lose so much of that development. Like, you're not even done cognitively developing with your frontal lobe, and then you got to think about physically as well. You have so much room to grow and to fill out. You're doing yourself a disservice by not playing other positions or other sports because you're not learning how to utilize as you're growing up.
Was that something when you were coming up?
Yeah.
Was that starting? Because when I got out of high school was when I think I started seeing that a little bit more. You have younger guys starting to be more specialist type stuff. So
it was kind of around, like, I would say junior year, because leading up, I think like 15, 16U, freshman, sophomore year, it was pitching and position play, and then like junior year, like when recruiting's super, super important, and there's not many Otanis out there where you can do both. So college is usually
both,
like
though.
once.
You were good at both.
Yeah, but it was just like a lot of guys just.
What do you think started that? Showcase?
I would say
trying to get as many guys on a team or something.
It has to be. Well, like, even when I don't know how it was with you guys, but like for me, it was you show up to your showcase, you throw 2 innings at a time, and then you leave. You know, because like I think I knew
showcase being at a younger age now, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of making younger guys get into that now.
And I always got offered to like do the whole 2-way thing. Like, hey, do you want to go do your throws from the outfield and take BP? And it was just kind of like, no, I don't see there's a point. I kind of know what I want to do.
Yeah, and this is a PO and showcase that hit 15 bombs as a senior in high school.
I hit tanks.
Well, taste, but
and but I had some 2-way offers, but like I knew pretty much. Funny story. So I got to Ole Miss, and there's a guy, David Goforth, and I was going there, and our pitching coach, Carl Lafford, he was like, hey, man, like, I know we talked about two-wing a little bit. Do you want to try? And I remember watching Goforth. He was our Saturday guy that year. He would sit 98. He had a cutter at, like, 92. I remember watching his bullpen one day, and I was like, there's no way I will ever hit that. So, no, I'm just going to focus on pitching. And that was kind of when I decided, like, okay, I'm a PO now. Shout out David Goforth.
Respect.
Yeah.
All right,
we were talking about
bring it back. Yeah. When did you? It was at high school, college, when you kind of finally realized, like, all right, yeah, I might have a shot at this.
I think what I was saying too is my sophomore year of high school, but now that I think about it more, like, there was a lot of steps along the way where it kind of solidified it, I guess. But going back to that story, I was playing football, and we had, like, football camp in West Virginia, but I decided there was a UVA baseball camp that I wanted to go to with me and my friends, and I went there honestly as, like, I'm going to go have fun with my friends during the summer. Like, there was no thought of recruiting or any of that I can remember. And I went, and I think I hit 89 or 8, something like that.
As a sophomore?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
And I remember I was at football practice, and, like, I got, like, UVA would send you, like, a report card back, and it said I hit 89. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I had no idea I could throw that hard, you know? And I think after that, I kind of knew, okay, this was probably going to be the way I was going to go as far as playing a sport in college. But then when I kept going, you know, you have moments along the way, like, oh, I did really well, you know, I hit this velo at my senior year, or I had this game against, you know, Florida, or I had whatever it was. I think just moments after that just kind of continued to solidify, like, okay, I made the right decision, and I can possibly do this at a high level.
Yeah. When did you really commit to baseball, like putting the work in, pitching,
I think that year, like, after that UVA camp, because I stopped playing football, like, seriously, and then I stopped playing basketball as well. I played in the rec leagues and stuff, but I think after that, I kind of, like I said, I knew I had a pretty good chance of at least going to college.
Yeah.
Right.
When did you commit?
Before my junior year of high school. So I knew I was going to Ole Miss pretty early on. And nowadays, people are committing at, like, 8th grade. Didn't you commit at, like, 9th grade?
Not anymore. Rule change.
Yeah.
Wait, what was the rule change? I didn't know that.
You can only talk to schools a certain, like,
coaches
I think
can't talk to you.
August 1st, I think.
Yeah.
It's like
of your junior year.
Can't technically.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you can't.
Yeah, you can't talk to coaches off campus.
Yeah.
Really?
Before August 1st of your
I think
junior
that's,
year or something like
dude.
that.
That's.
Oh, it's awesome.
That needs to happen.
Well, I mean, nowadays kids are committing in the 8th grade and then decommitting by their junior year. Either they fall off or they realize that that's not the school that they want to be at.
Well, that too, and then, like, think about, you're gonna heartbreak the kid's heart's gonna get broken if they don't develop at the pace that the college thinks that they will, and all of a sudden, hey, he's a different guy, and we want to pull a scholarship, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I spent my 8th grade to junior year committed to this school, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm not, and now what do I do?
Yep.
And I think that's going to be good just because it allows the kid to develop. It allows the colleges to see him as much as they need to. And
just mentally now, too, you know, like, there's so many kids beat themselves up that they're not committed as a sophomore. And now everybody's got to do it around the same time frame.
Crazy.
So
they're so.
When was more structure.
When did you commit?
It's the summer after my freshman year.
Jeez.
High school?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end
of the day,
tell
your story too. I want to hear your story.
Well, it's just like at the end of the day, a lot of guys, like, at that age, they want to feel like the man around their high school hallways, you know, like, oh, I got this label on me, I'm going to this school.
They want the hoodie, they want the lanyard,
exactly.
They want to feel cool.
But at the end of the day, that doesn't really mean anything until you sign the letter of intent your senior year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like Chris was saying, it's like that rule that came into play August 1st, it changes so much. Because now, like, I mean, I just think kids think they have to commit so early because they see other guys doing it, but that it doesn't matter until you get there, really.
Yeah. I would even argue, too, it doesn't matter until you're, like, there.
Yeah.
You know, and actually
I think it's going to help kids commit to the training aspect now, too. Freshman, sophomore, you're not so focused on having to go to these showcases and whatnot during the summer and the fall. Like, we can commit our time. We could actually do what's going to help us out in the future.
I think that's an awesome point. Like, so many kids forego, like, that crucial developmental period because they want to play in every single showcase.
Yeah, they're out there throwing 75 and thinking they're getting exposure, and, like,
it's a constant.
You're not getting anything out of that.
Think about it this way: it's a constant form of, like, trying to get back to baseline. You know, there's never that period of time where, like, okay, I'm going to commit to, like, being in the weight room, doing my plyo work, and trying to get better and, you know, develop physically and mentally. I'm constantly playing baseball, so there's no time to commit to yourself basically and see how good I can get by getting, in the weight room or whatever it may be, working on efficiencies, all that. Like, it's so important to have that time to develop. It's at some period.
So let's keep going off of that too. Let's talk about your time in college, in the pros. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? There's obviously you had so many different coaches, different philosophies. Like,
yeah.
What were some things that, like, do you feel like you listened to everything and tried it, and then was like, all right, this didn't work for me. Let's do something else, or was it something like you kind of saw through the BS most of the time? Like, when did you start really figuring out like what was right for you? I guess.
I think it's hard, right? Because in college, you're so committed to winning. Like, it's the only thing that matters is the program and how can we get wins. Yeah. And I was very fortunate to be, a weekend guy, the Friday guy, 2 years in a row. And my sole focus was, how am I going to get that lineup out and how am I going to get a win? That was it. It's I wasn't thinking in the term or the line of mechanics or developing pitches. It was whatever I have that day, I'm going to compete. And I think from college, that's what I learned the most.
Yeah. Was
how to compete.
Play the game.
Because in high school, right, a lot of guys understand, if you're committed to a higher program, you're probably going to be the best guy in the field more times than not. And you can go out there on pure talent alone and win. But you start to go, you play in the ACC, you play in the SEC, you're playing in really college baseball as a whole now is pretty good. There really isn't a bad conference. You look at someone like Campbell, right, who's, a lot of schools a lot of people outside of North Carolina probably have no idea where Campbell is, but they develop guys so well and they play so well. So going back on that, I think I learned how to win without talent in college. Obviously had talent, but that wasn't driving. I was learning how to compete. I was learning how to will my way out of innings, how to set guys up, things like that. And obviously in college they call your games and stuff. So when I transitioned into pro ball, a lot of it was kind of, okay, now let's learn how to play chess, right? Let's learn how to set guys up. Let's learn how to do a whole bunch of, what does your daily routine look like without the benefits of having a college atmosphere? Because in college, everything to a minute is planned out.
Yeah.
In a pro off season, all the time's on you. You don't have any requirements. You're working out for your career. It's not like somebody's forcing you to get out of bed at 5 a.m. and go lift weights. You got to be able to do that. And I think in pro ball, I learned not only how to play, the whole chess thing, but where's my motivation coming from? Is it me that wants to be great, or is it because someone is forcing me? And I, kind of had that, okay, I want to do this. I want to be really good at it. So let's make it happen.
When you were coming up through the system, college, whatever, was there any roadblocks for you? Obviously, progression was never linear, right? There was always this gradual progression, but was there anything that was really hard on yourself and you almost felt like it was time to give up, or
dude, there's so
how early on did that come?
That came early, man. I was actually thinking about this not too long ago. I remember my freshman year of college, I didn't throw on that opening weekend. I didn't come out of the pen or nothing, and I was so mad. Was it one of those things when you were coming in, coaches were like, you're gonna be a weekend guy for us, right? So it's now look, you have to earn everything that you get,
100%.
and you do. But obviously, as getting recruited, it's a little different. And you think at an 18-year-old, oh, I'm going to come in and be the guy, and then you go to practice and you realize, oh, I'm not the guy.
Good.
These dudes are good,
dudes
man.
Are
I got
98, and throwing 92 mile an hour cutters.
I got to learn how to be this guy, And I remember going back further to winter break. I remember sitting on the stairs, being like, "There's no way I can go back. I can't compete with those guys." I'm just a kid from Virginia. These kids are from Florida. They played all year round. I'm nowhere near as good as them. And then I remember my dad sitting there and saying, no, that's not how this works. You committed, you go. And obviously I was always going to go back, but it just was that internal battle of just feeling inadequate as an 18-year-old kid against some of these kids are 22, 23 years old, right? And I get back, and I don't throw that opening weekend out of the pen, and I remember just being livid and pissed. And Coach B came up to me and was like, hey, I love the fire. I love it, but this is just how it is right now. You're going to start on that second weekday game. So it was a Wednesday. And I think I pitched against Arkansas State maybe, and I did not do well. And I remember my velo was down, and I actually had like a little bit of an injury after the outing, and I took some time off. And you're sitting there and you're like, I'm throwing 88. These guys are throwing a billion basically. They're grown men. How am I going to make this work? And I remember sitting there during that time off like, okay, I got to make a change. And that's when my work ethic really did change a lot, as far as buying into the weight room stuff, the arm care, all that. And I remember came back, my first outing I think was against Sanford, and I was up to like 96. Wow. I was like, all right, I can do this. Let's go.
We'll kind of lead into you too. You had a little different experience. Obviously you dealt with a lot of injuries starting in high school. How did that affect you, and like what kept you in the game so long, especially after going through it so many times?
I mean, like I said, I always say this to like even people I see here when I'm working, I was that stubborn kid. I mean, I came here, like I said, I saw you a handful of times for pitching lessons. I see Brandon for therapy. And then,
I didn't know that. You gave him lessons?
Oh, yeah. I got videos. I got videos.
I need to see
I would text him. Yeah. I would text him like probably every month or so and say, hey, man, how's everything going? Send me some videos. And he legit told me he would go outside, set the mound up, take some videos, and send it to me. And he was not doing anything at all.
Yeah.
We have to show those, Joey, at some point.
Yeah, but Brandon doing all my shoulder stuff, and he told me all the right things to do, and I was one of those guys, like we were talking about earlier, I threw harder than everyone at a younger age. I was already committed, so my mindset was, I don't really have to do this, so might as well. Like, why do I have to do it if, I'm already doing good. Yeah. So that's kind of the experience for me. And I mean, at this point now, like, yeah, I do regret it, but I'm not one of those guys like I'm going to own up to it. Like, I understand the mistakes that I made, but that's why I enjoy what I do now, because I make sure that every kid I work with is not going to make that mistake. I always tell them to stay on top of everything that we give them.
And you guys both being really good at a young age, it's probably
You were pretty good too, Chris.
Yeah, but But it's probably hard to buy into what people say. I mean, you're already having success, so I mean, obviously immaturity's still there, but
I think if anything, like what I learned growing up was I probably took too much advice, and then as you get older, you learn like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best thing to try to emulate.
Though, so,
so I think it's a case by case thing for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about being in the big leagues. Obviously, you're known for your video of being the hype man, being the club guy, right? So obviously your personality is bar none, right?
Well,
like
thanks.
one
That's
of
sweet of you.
One of the greatest guys to walk into this facility, and like for Brandon and I, you were the first pro guy we really had, other than Tenuta and some guys that kind of came in as rehab guys. Like you were the first pro guy that we actually got to put our hands on and work with. And we always talked about how lucky we were to have like a personality. Like, what was that? Just something that was instilled to you at a young age, like how to be a good teammate, how to be a good guy, right? Like,
I think where that comes from is just really I enjoyed being around the guys and playing baseball. Like, I just think it was so cool to be able to do that. I think it was out of just pure, I don't know, happiness to be in the situation I was in.
Yeah.
And that's probably, again, like what I'll miss the most is like that stuff, is being in the clubhouse and having fun with the guys and all that. But
and you can still see that here. Like, obviously I wasn't in the locker room with you, but when these guys come here, like every morning it'll be 9:00 in the morning and we're music's loud. Like everybody's got to get in a good mood. So I think like that camaraderie is huge, especially in a training environment as well.
Yeah, like that was kind of a big thing for me, at least, and we've talked about this, I think, in the first episode. Like, the culture's got to be right. If people want to come in here and have a good time, like, there's got to be a certain way that we go about things. And what was really cool is how fast we were able to adjust to that, and like it just felt so natural. And it was just a ton of fun, man. Like, I think we didn't lose any of that clubhouse type element. So for me, it was a very easy transition, and I really enjoyed coming into work every day.
What made obviously that helped, but making the transition from playing, I mean, you played your whole life basically year-round, right? So, like, this year being the first full year without baseball, like, how's your experience been? What made you want to do this, really? Like, obviously we had a close relationship, but, like, what made you want to lead into helping these guys and developing programs and whatnot?
Well, I think what it was when I, like what you were talking about earlier, like, when I met Brandon and you, Chris, the place in Apex, like, there was that one mound, Or was it 2 mounts or 1 mount?
Technically 2. Oh, well, yeah, technically 3, but
okay. So we had a few
2
mounts
that you could use at the same time.
And it was like a 1-dimension hallway outside, basically, and we were throwing our pens at 9 o'clock at night, and I was like, these guys are so smart. Like, there's so much value in their knowledge and Brandon's understanding of biomechanics and everything that Chris has learned. Like, there needs to be a bigger place. Like, there needs to be a facility with the weight room and the plyo, all that, because of just, like, and you know me, I'm not going to just blow smoke. Like, how I was very shocked at how smart Brandon was when I met him.
Well, and that tells you what kind of person he was, because even before you were working here, he was listening to everything you said. Like,
no, I know.
Everything because you had been in good environments before training-wise,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
Everything that you were preached to him, like, he instilled, like, he put it in.
That was so crazy.
And that's the thing that I've enjoyed about working here is, like, whatever we want. If there's something that we need to get guys better, we'll get it.
And that's that's what I remember sitting and having that conversation with Brandon, because I trained at P3 up in St. Louis, and shout out to those guys, they're phenomenal, a lot of great people. And I was like, dude, they have all this stuff and like the facility and what you name it. And Brandon's like, oh, okay, cool, let's do it. I was like, okay. Next year I come back, we have this place here in Raleigh, and nowhere near half of what it was or it is today, but right. I mean, the guy is willing to do just about anything to get these guys better in here, and that development, like you said, is never linear, but he's going to give you everything he's got for it. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's funny, I told him as soon as we moved in here, I was like, wow, this place is huge, but
not anymore.
It won't be for long. And that showed this year. And I mean, like, this summer and this fall and winter is going to be, the doors are going to be blowing off, I got a feeling.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. It's a lot of fun with everybody in here.
Yeah. And again, we attribute a lot of that to you. Like,
thanks.
We've been handcuffed. Like, I wasn't a pitcher coming through, so, like, programming and all that stuff, like, I learned a lot of the biomechanics from Brandon, and then just, like I said, working on guys throughout the year. So, like, all the pitching stuff I had a good feel for, but I mean, there's just so much more to the development of these guys.
Right, and everybody's so
glad
different.
You brought in.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Like, just having the 3D here, again, we've mentioned this, I think, before, but, like, you throw in that and we know exactly what you need to do when you need to do it, basically. Like, and just like how you were saying with the programming, like, it's based off of that. A lot of even in the weight room is based off of that, because we can tell, every little nuance of your delivery, can lead into this, that, and the other. So we just kind of go off of it, and, our strength guy, Matt D, can put together a great program based just off that solely. Obviously, we have our strength assessment and the mobility assessment, the PT, whatever it is, but that tool is the best thing in the world.
And then diving in again to, like, your playing days, obviously you came here even whenever you were still a player, like, you knew a lot about the pitch design stuff even before it was, like, really known. Was that something as a player too, like, you would have teammates and whatnot, you would help with those guys? Like, where did that passion come from? I mean, obviously you're around guys that throw some of the grossest stuff, right? So you learn a lot from that, but then, like, obviously your passion for it is so much deeper than a lot of guys.
I can remember, I think it was 2017, I was talking with Daniel Coulomb, left-hand pitcher. I think he's with the Twins now, and he's like, dude, your curveball would be so good if you did this. And then he showed me, like, his spike grip. He's got one of the best curveballs in the game. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, man, like, you got to do this because of this, and he kind of laid out why. I remember trying it in the pen, and one was, like, the best breaking ball I've ever thrown in my life. The next, I spiked. The next, I threw 50 feet over the catcher's head. I'm like, there's something to it, so I kept it in my back pocket. But I think what I took away from that is why was my index finger off the ball? And for me, like, I ask a lot of questions about just about everything, want to answer to everything, and I started diving into everything you could possibly imagine about it, and then one rabbit hole turned into another. Gyro spin at the time was kind of new, and all the pitch design world was kind of new, so I was just learning every bit of information I could, and I think that's kind of where it started. And then once in 2018, I felt very comfortable with that spike curveball. It allowed me to have a lot of success. I was like, wow, there's something to this. I'm going to keep diving into it. And then all of a sudden I started putting my fingers together on my fastball, saw some metrics change, and started kind of tilting my fastball, trying to make that cut slider, slutter hybrid that a lot of guys throw now. And, like, oh, there's some gyro spin. And you just learn the science behind it, and it's so interesting. And I don't know if that's a long-winded answer.
Well, it probably brings you back to your childhood days, playing wiffle ball and all that stuff, and just trying to make stuff as nasty as possible.
Right, and that's basically what baseball is nowadays. It's like modern-day wiffle ball with the sweeper and the ride cutters.
It's actually insane what guys are able to do to baseballs.
Yeah, so I think it's just a really cool time to be involved with baseball because of technology, kind of the way it's been going, and you're learning so much. And if you look at it, every year there's a new fad or trend, right? Like it was the ride ball, fastball guys for a while who could tunnel with that downer curveball. Now it's kind of the sinkers sort of back in, and then you have the sweeper slider that a lot of our guys in here are throwing now. And it's just staying ahead of the trend, staying ahead of the hitters, and learning as much as you can about physics, right? Because a lot of it has to do with in-flight stuff with the ball and like the seam shifted wake stuff. That's kind of new.
Some efficiencies for guys or what make them unique and get guys out.
So. Right. So I just think it's a lot of fun, and it's experimenting, really. At the end of the day, like you find something, you try it out and see if it works or not, and you make conclusions based off that.
Yeah. Throughout your career, who was the hardest out? Who was the one guy that you struggled with probably the most?
Well, in college, I vividly remember Preston Overby. I think he actually is a police officer in Oxford, Mississippi now. We're in the area, I think. Played third for us. We're in the same class. I couldn't get him out. Inter squads, you name it. That guy was impossible to get out. But going in into Pro Bowl, I hated facing like left-handed barrel control type hitters. So anybody that fits that mold, I had a really tough time getting
like
out.
The Schrocks of the world.
Schrock or like an Eric Sogard those type of guys are just
find a barrel and everything.
Yeah, and again,
or at least find contact on it.
Yeah, like I relied heavily on my carry, in the flat bat path that those guys were able to have, made it really hard. And I can remember facing Joey Votto. I got him in a 3-2 count. I think it was like I don't know how many pitches it was, but it was like a 15 pitch at bat. He just fouled everything off. And he was like, he knew, I think bases were loaded too. He knew, like, okay, this is a guy, like, I can just keep fighting him off. It is what it is. Then I eventually walked him, and I was like, damn it. I hate those kind of hitters. So if that gives you an answer there, those type of hitters.
What about you? You faced some good competition in your life. Who was probably the hardest guy for you to get out?
I would just say, for opposite reasons, obviously. I was more of a sinker ball guy, but I faced Tristan Casas in Florida, and he hit one like 110 off the bat on me off the wall. So I would say that was that was a barrel.
He's pretty good though.
Yeah, I would say so.
You're a Red Sox fan too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's on the Red Sox.
Is that weird for you or no?
It kind of is. I mean, I got some buddies in the minor leagues right now, so it's getting a little bit like easier for me to see. But I mean, Jordan Walker for the Cardinals? He's 20. I'm 23, okay. So it's just kind of like
he's not even 21 yet.
No. So it's just like it's odd seeing stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, it's strange, very strange.
Well, your last year, I mean, you were kind of the vet in the room. Like, did your mindset, like, were you one of those guys that were picking guys? Obviously, you probably did that your whole career, but was that weird for you when you were younger? Or?
What do you mean, like?
So, like, you get into the big leagues, and when did you make your debut? How old were you?
24, I think.
Yeah, so, like, that environment, like, were you one of those guys that you were still kind of that big teammate guy, or was that something as you were in that longer, it obviously opened you up more?
And again, it just kind of goes back to, like, just enjoying being there. When I came up with Oakland, there was a couple guys, and you hear stories, like, about how great of a teammate Stephen Vogt is, and, like, Sean Doolittle, those type of guys were in the clubhouse, and you learn from them, and you learn how to act, and, those are guys that just kind of took me under their wing, I guess, so to speak. And, like, I dealt with some injury stuff too my first year being up, and they were always there and helping me out, and just great dudes. And I think you learn how to act based off of who you're around too. And I think I always had my personality, but you learn how to be respectful just based about being around those guys. And very fortunate to have those type of figures in a clubhouse, my first clubhouse, I guess, in the big leagues.
And we'll end with you taking us through your debut as a big leaguer. How that went, what led up to it, and the excitement, the nerves, who was there, who wasn't.
I got a few. I'm gonna give you a long-winded answer here. I got a few good things about that. So I remember we had a flight to Round Rock. This is in AAA, and one of the guys got hurt the night before in the big leagues, and had a flight to Round Rock, and I threw 2 innings the night before, so I was exhausted. Like, it's you're trying to recover. You have a 4 a.m., 5 a.m. flight, and it's just damn near impossible after playing a night game. So I'm in there, and I go to the trainer. I'm like, Brad LaRosa, dude, I'm hanging. Like, I need you to get in there. And he goes, how bad are you hanging? I was like, not great. Like, it doesn't feel good. He's like, okay, well, could you pitch today? I was like, I mean, yeah, if you needed me, but I need some soft tissue work, dude. And he's like, okay, be right back. And so I was like, this is strange. And then he starts and he gives me like a little bit of soft tissue. And I mean, Brad's known for how great of a trainer he was, and kind of just very like, okay, you're done. Brad, that ain't like you, man. What's going on? And so I walk out, and our manager's waiting for me, and he lets me know Ryan Christensen. I think he's a bench coach for the Padres now, because Bob Melvin was the manager. And he lets me know, and obviously all the emotions hit you, and you go through the phone calls, your mom's crying, all that stuff. And I was on a flight to Minnesota. So I get to Minnesota, and I threw, the 2 innings or whatever. So I'm still kind of sore. I'm feeling okay. And at that point, you're like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to throw tonight. I'm obviously got called up, so I'm available whenever. So get to the bullpen, and I was probably more on the downside than on the hot side, I guess. But our starter gets in trouble in like the 3rd inning, I think it was. And I'm like, I look around, phone call comes, boom, I'm in the game that night. And I'm like, that happened fast. So I'm warming up, and I start to feel the heaviness of my body just creep in. Like, all of the emotions, the nerves, everything just starts hitting you at once, and you're like, this is about to happen, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. So inning ends, I start jogging out, and it feels like I'm moving through water. I have cinder blocks on my feet, and I am there all alone, and I look up, and there's 4 or 5 decks of seats when I'm used to seeing 2. And I just go, this is not real. This is a simulation. This can't be me experiencing this right now. So I go in, I'm facing the Twins. First 2 batters I give up, both doubles, and if you go look at the tape, they're actually, I think, both on 3-2 counts, and the balls are literally like a foot out and a foot up. And
big hitters.
Yeah, and it goes back to that thing when I was talking about in college, like, I'm not ready for this. Yeah. Like, these guys are way better than me. And then my first out is actually a pop-up bunt back to myself, which I don't think I've ever done. Even back to like Little League days, I remember catching a pop-up, bunt to the pitcher. And then I get Brian Dozier 1-2, and I go, okay, this is it. This is my first strikeout. I'm gonna get it. I hit him right in the elbow.
Oh.
And I remember sitting there thinking, like, oh my God, Brian Dozier, great player, had a really good career. Is he still playing? Anybody know?
Not sure.
No?
I think we watched that video, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Go back and watch that?
I just remember, like, you watch that guy in high school, right? Like, you know who that is. And I'm like, I just ended his career. Like, that's my first thought of being nervous. But no, it was cool, man. I got to experience that. My next outing went really, really well. And shout out to the A's for being so great about not just setting me right back down after that. They gave me another opportunity, and it went really well. And after that first one, I just kind of felt like baseball again. There wasn't the nerves. There wasn't any of that. It was like, okay, I'm here, and I'm good enough, and I'm ready to compete.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. Anything else you want to build on? Plans for BYoung Performance? What's to come?
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about it a little bit. We got remote stuff coming soon. Got some sign-ups starting now. So feel free to get those in, guys. Like, already have had a lot of phone calls, so that's really exciting. Yeah, I think, the stuff that we talked about in our meeting today, this new stuff that we're getting in here, again, this placement, it never stops. Development never stops, and we continue to get better. We continue to get the latest innovative equipment. We're constantly learning. So I'm just grateful to have just been in the situation, guys. So thank you.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye.